to the Russia-Ukraine war now, where there have been updates on military operations from both warring parties over the past 24 hours. Russian Ministry of Defense says its troops destroyed Ukrainian tanks, armored vehicles, howitzers, and hit drone workshops and other facilities in combats with Ukrainian forces in Donetsk. It says these forces seized control of one more settlement in that region as they seek to pierce Ukraine's defensive front lines. Meanwhile, Ukrainian armed forces said the situation in the Povrovsk front line is still grim, reporting 95 battles and intense fighting in that direction. Ukraine says its forces have been taking all necessary measures to repel the Russian offensive and stabilize the situation. Well, 2 people have been killed after Russia's airstrikes hit the Ukrainian city of Sumy. A Sunday overnight strike also left 4 others injured, including 2 children. According to the region's military administration, several residential buildings and cars were damaged. Firefighters were also seen working at the scene of the rubble. The Sumy region, which borders Russia, has been subject to frequent attacks by Russian forces. Moscow denies targeting civilians, saying its aim is to destroy Ukraine's infrastructure critical to Kyiv's war efforts. And 3 people have been injured in the Russian region of Belgorod after Ukrainian shelling. According to the regional governor, the shell hit the town of Shebenko, causing fire to 6 buildings. Belgorod has come under frequent shelling and drone attacks from Ukraine in the course of the conflict. It's next to the Kursk region, a large swathe of which is occupied by Ukrainian forces following a cross-border incursion last month. And finally, on the Russia-Ukraine war for today, in another development, the European Union says it has intelligence from its allies indicates Iran supplied Russia with ballistic missiles. Spokesperson Peter Stano says the bloc is aware of the credible information shared by allies, hereby warning new sanctions will be imposed on Iran if deliveries are confirmed. It comes as the Wall Street Journal reported that the United States had briefed European allies that Iran had delivered short-range ballistic missiles to Russia. Reacting to this, the Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said Iran is Russia's important partner and that they're developing dialogue in trade and economic relations. Adding, the report cited unidentified U.S. and European officials, emphasizing not all such reports were correct. Iran, on the other hand, says the report is psychological warfare. Today, health workers in the UK have told a Covid19 Inquiry there was a lack of support at the start of the pandemic. In a video shown to the inquiry, one GP says she was going to work exposed to COVID every day, but had nothing. Another consultant says he and others felt very vulnerable as the pandemic spread. Adam Wagner, who represents 13 pregnancy, baby, and parent organizations, says there were structural failures during the pandemic to prioritize and provide sufficient resources to the safety of pregnant women and their babies. Wagner recalls that in one circumstance, one woman had to call her partner after emergency surgery to say that both their babies had died. With no signal at the hospital, the woman had to make a decision about what to do with the embryos remains alone. The new phase of the inquiry, examining the impact on patients, healthcare workers, and the wider NHS, began this morning. We're staying in the UK. Actor and musician Idris Elba today joined British Prime Minister Keir Starmer to launch a new anti-knife crime coalition. Elba, known for roles in the television series The Wire and Luther, has previously advocated for a ban on machetes and so-called zombie knives, headed his own anti-knife crime campaign, Don't Stop Your Future. The meeting of the coalition at number 10 Downing Street was also attended by British Home Secretary, representatives of charities and family members of knife crime victims. While fatal shootings are rare in Britain, knife crime is surging. In the year to June 2023, around 247 people lost their lives where a knife or sharp instrument was involved, with many of those dying being teenage boys or those in their early 20s.
We said that we would take it on if we were elected into government, and this is in the heart of one of them in relation to knife crime, because knife crime has gone up, not down, in recent years, notwithstanding the steps that have been taken. So we need to deal with that. We'll take these measures, and by next week it'll all be fixed. You know that's not realistic, the desired effect. And that's really important today. It'll be really important when we meet again, because no doubt you'll say, it's good that you've done this, but you need to go further. I'd much rather somebody said around this table now, that isn't going to work, think again, or take that further.
Why am I here? I guess I'm here as a concerned citizen and as a parent. Around 5-6 years ago, I started an organisation called Don't Stop the Future in reaction to a young lady that had lost her life outside of a tube station. I was just appalled. And I used Instagram, I used social media, and the effect of that was incredible, that people wanted to hear a voice like myself. We aren't going to end knife crime. We can't. That's not a realistic, but we can tackle the attributes towards it.
Since that day, our lives have never been the same. I'm a grieving mother, but I will do all I can to ensure that the failings that led to my son's murder are corrected, so that other families don't feel the same pain I feel today.
Thousands of people have taken to the streets of Mexico's capital to oppose controversial judicial reforms pushed by President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, which will go to a vote next week. The ruling party, Morena, and its allies are currently one vote short of the two-thirds majority in the Senate needed to pass the reform which would overhaul Mexico's judiciary by electing judges through popular vote. Most analysts still expect the ruling bloc to find that Senate votes or for absentees to mean it is not needed, but the opposition, despite being weakened by infighting and a drop in public support, is resisting. At the march in Mexico City, judicial workers who have been at the forefront of the protest were joined by students and others to oppose the proposed reforms. Meanwhile, thousands of supporters of Pakistan's jailed former Prime Minister Imran Khan on Sunday gathered for a massive rally on the outskirts of Islamabad. Protesters and PTI party leaders rallied against the government, demanding Khan's immediate release. The crowd chanted slogans in support of Khan and called for his swift release. The PTI party had initially planned the protest in July, but it was postponed when the district administration denied permission. The rally was again rescheduled for August 22nd, but at the last minute, local administration pushed the event to September 8th. Khan, who lost power in a parliamentary vote of no confidence after falling out with the generals, has said the army has been backing what he calls the politically motivated cases against him, which the military has denied. We'll stay a bit longer in Asia. At least 59 people have been killed in Vietnam amid landslides and floods triggered by tropical Typhoon Yagi. A typhoon considered as Asia's most powerful storm this year made landfall on Vietnam's northeastern coast over the weekend after causing havoc in China and the Philippines. According to authorities, the superstorm cut power to millions of households and companies, flooded highways, and disrupted telecommunication networks. The weather agency has warned of more floods and landslides, noting that heavy rainfall ranged between 8.2 inches to 17 inches in several parts of the region over the past 24 hours. We're headed to the United States now, where the man suspected of opening fire on cars traveling interstate 75 in rural Kentucky was at large on Sunday night after a day-long manhunt by multiple law enforcement agencies through rugged, wooded terrain. Kentucky State Police was leading the manhunt for the suspect, 32-year-old Joseph Couch, whom police identified after finding a vehicle registered to him and an AR-style rifle near the shooting site, about 8 miles from the city of London in southeastern Kentucky. At a late evening news conference, officials said they believe they had contained the suspect, but did not rule out the possibility he could have taken his own life.
Well, my message would be, that we would ask that he would give himself up. And we're not going to quit until we do lay hands on him, and we was really hoping, maybe we wish that would have been last night. We was hoping today. We hope tonight. We hope tomorrow. But this effort is not going to stop.
Do we know how he obtained the AR-15 firearm that he used, and how many other weapons he may own?
He obtained a firearm at a local place here in London, but it was obtained, legally. He went through the ATF. He went through all the proper paperwork, and we have the paperwork. We have that paperwork, copies of the receipts. But that was obtained, if you're not a felon or something, if you can go in and you can fill the paperwork, anyone can purchase the guns.
When was that?
That was yesterday. I'll have to let somebody else speak on that.
He's originally from the Knox-Whitley County area, and he does have a military background. He served in the National Guard for at least 4 years, and he was a member of the Engineer Battalion.
You guys mentioned that you guys need a break from searching. How do you think he may be surviving out there?
We're still trying to ascertain how much preparation he put into this. We searched his house this evening. We have a lot of stuff from that, a lot of devices that we're going to download, that we're going to crack. We're going to get more information. But we can't rule out the fact that he could have committed suicide back there, and we have not found him yet.
And we're just 24 hours away from the first presidential debate between U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. The debate takes place tomorrow, September 10, in Philadelphia. While both sides prepare to spar on Tuesday night, the Vice President is expected to continue debate preparations in Pittsburgh, where she took a break to meet voters over the weekend. Trump, on the other hand, rallied in Wisconsin on Saturday and is expected to join a call with evangelical leaders later this evening. As for their running mates, the Democratic vice presidential nominee, Tim Walz, will be campaigning in Texas and in the swing state of Nevada tonight, while Trump's running mate, J.D. Vance, will be speaking in a pre-recorded interview with Tucker Carlson. The rules for the debate tomorrow, as stated by ABC News, are that the candidates' microphones will be muted. When their opponent speaks, there will be no audience. The candidates will not be permitted to have written notes. No staff can visit them. During the 2 commercial breaks, the candidates cannot ask questions of another. We'll be monitoring from here the debates by ABC in Philadelphia, but so will our correspondent in Washington, D.C., Maria Bird. Maria, I'm sure that there is a lot of expectation riding on this debate tomorrow. Let's start with the preparation by the candidates. We know that they're still out there campaigning. What's usually the routine for them hours before the debate?
So as you said, they're still out there campaigning. They will get their last minute campaigns in. Their speech writers, those who are the strategists around debating, and those who they've hired to support them in this measure will begin to work with them later on this evening and begin to give them insight into what they can expect. Everyone in the campaign teams are monitoring exactly what's being said at these campaigns so they can anticipate potentially will be asked and what will be said when they do campaign tomorrow or when they have their debate tomorrow. So that's something that we can definitely expect. We can also expect that in addition to them discussing exactly those items in the campaign trail, that they're going to be working with the moderator. We know that the Trump campaign has requested some sort of ideas for the questions that he should be prepared for. They're going to focus in, obviously on what's happening with the economy. So they're going to be hitting those very top key items. And obviously, as we know, unfortunately, we've had some mass shootings over the last few days. And so those are going to be at the top of mind. So anything that's currently impacting the American people are the areas that they're going to spend time focusing in on. And of course, getting their rest and preparing themselves for what will definitely be a historic night.
Yes, and there will also the candidates will be focused on looking presidential, looking and sounding presidential tomorrow. The rules for the debate are kind of similar to the ones that existed when Trump debated Biden just months ago. What could be different this time round for his debate with Kamala Harris?
Well, we know that President Biden and Vice President Harris are very different candidates. Yes, they're both in a Democratic Party, but the way in which they present themselves are very different. And so it's going to be very key that the former president and his team is able to prepare him for how to debate Vice President Harris, which is going to be much different. She's a former prosecutor. We know that this is what she does for a living. And so this is kind of her sweet spot. And so how the former president is going to be able to adjust to that and being able to debate her in a way that allows his messages to come forth versus him coming off in areas that might overshadow the actual contextual and the substance of the debate. We know that she is ready and looking to this debate. And as we know, her committee has definitely been prepping her. And this is where they believe she will shine. And this will definitely, in their opinion, allow her percentage points to go up.
And what do Americans really look out for during debates like this? I mean, is it the mannerisms of the candidates? Is it the arguments that they present? Or is it, the kind of feeling that they leave them with afterwards?
Well, the American people go into it looking for the actual arguments, the positions, the thoughts, the philosophies, how they plan on being able to carry forth the country. But again, as you said, mannerisms, the tone, some of the reactions become a part of what the American people begin to focus in and notice, especially when things are outside of the realm of what someone might consider a normalcy within a debate setting. So those sometimes can overshadow, but they go in really looking for those key areas, especially when you talk about a candidate that has brought some Republicans. You look at Vice President Harris, there are Republicans that have now switched over to saying they are going to support her. So those are the individuals that she's going to try to obviously tackle. And then there are Democrats that do not believe that she's the best candidate. And so obviously the former president's going to try to focus in on those key areas, especially immigration. That's a very strong area that much of his base believes in. The border wall, all of those very clearly Trump issues and where he has stood for quite some time. So that's really where the American people are going to be looking for, to hear those things that resonate with them, that allow them to be clear as to what decision they should make when they go to the polls.
Yes, and I'm sure Americans will also be looking forward to really listening to Kamala Harris's thoughts. That's something that people have complained about, that she hasn't done enough interviews before the debate. The last interview she had with CNN, she had on her vice presidential nominee with her, and people thought that that really didn't, look good for her or for her party. For Donald Trump, we're used to him. We're used to listening to Trump. I mean, he spoke a lot during the last campaigns. So, what would help undecided voters, move the needle as regards, where they will be leaning towards during those polls? Because the campaigns and the debates really are targeted at them.
Yes. And those undecided voters are looking for some very key questions to be answered. Where's the economy going to go? If it's a Harris administration, if it's a Trump administration, what can we expect out of the economy? They're looking to know what's going to happen with the war. The U.S. is very much heavily engaged and a part of and supporting obviously Israel. We know that the war with Hamas, and we also know Ukraine and Russia. So those are going to be key components as well. Their foreign relations understanding and where they sit in those areas. We're also going to definitely, they're going to want to know about how we're going to be able to sit with the job market. Jobs are going to be extremely important as well, and housing markets, things that impact Americans each and every day. So, and being able to also see someone that's going to be able to cross party lines. That's another area that undecided voters are looking for. They don't want to be sitting in a situation where we're having stalemates within Congress. They want to know someone that's going to be able to cross party lines. And as we know, safety and security and gun violence continues to be at the top of mind for many Americans. And so, how one is going to be able to address safety and healthcare becomes another major issue. We still are struggling in the U.S. With affordable and fair healthcare for all.
Well, we have our preparations going on here as we intend to monitor the debates. I'm sure you also do, Maria. Well, do everything you need to do before, because we'll be calling on you tomorrow to get updates as we count down to the first presidential debate between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. Thanks again, Maria.
Okay.
We're staying in the U.S. The line of fire in Southern California grew to 20,553 acres on Monday today after officials ordered thousands of people to leave their homes in San Bernardino County over the weekend, with firefighters bracing for another day battling the flames in the unyielding heat wave. Hundreds of firefighters brought containment to the blaze to 3% overnight, but stifling heat and dry conditions remain a complicating factor as work is done around the clock to protect residents and structures. The wildfire nearly doubled in size over the weekend, according to the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection. The state governor, Gavin Newsom, declared a state of emergency on Saturday night that allowed for additional resources and funding to assist with the firefight.
As far as I know, it's 0% contained. It got pretty close to Running Springs, but it sounds like they stopped it right at Smiley Park, so looks like it's going to hold there. Yeah, I've had a bunch of friends up in Running Springs get evacuated, but all their homes are safe at the moment.
We saw more air crew, and now we see at night, no air crew. It seems like they don't really fly too much at night because they haven't been able to see because of the smoke and the coverage and everything like that. So I think that might be why it's like growing so much at night. So I'm hoping that they can get out there. I just heard some helicopters, so.
At least 20 people are now known to have died in Sudan after shelling hit a busy market area in the city of Sennar. The Sudan Doctors Network is accusing the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces of being responsible for the attack, which happened on Sunday, condemning it as a massacre of civilians. This happened a day after Sudan's military rejected a proposal by UN experts to send in an international force to protect civilians. Thousands of people have been killed. More than 10 million others fled their homes since civil war broke out between the army and the RSF last April, making it one of the world's worst humanitarian crises. In the meantime, the head of the World Health Organization is calling on the world to wake up and help Sudan as it enters 17 months of conflict. Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus was speaking during a visit to Port Sudan, the main hub for aid agencies and new headquarters of the government, after he was driven out of the capital, Khartoum, by the RSF. He said he was shocked by the world's insufficient action to stop the crisis. After visiting a children's hospital caring for malnourished infants in Port Sudan over the weekend.
The conflict has left some 25 million people, more than half of the country's population, in dire need of humanitarian aid. Of these, 14.7 million require urgent assistance for a range of life-saving support, for which the humanitarian sector has requested $2.7 billion, which is less than half funded. But we must focus on all people in need, all 25 million people. And this means additional resources are required to meet their needs. And we're calling on the world to wake up and help Sudan out of the nightmare it's living through. According to available data, Sudan's conflict has so far killed more than 20,000 people. This is an underestimate, by the way. Displaced over 10 million people inside the country and forced another 2 million to flee to neighboring countries. This is the largest internal displacement of people in the world today. The scale of the emergency is shocking, and as is the insufficient action being taken to curtail the conflict and respond to the suffering it's causing.
Bilateral relations now. Norway's Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre is in China for a 3-day state visit. This trip comes as this year marks the 70th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic ties between both countries. According to China's Foreign Ministry, Chinese President Xi Jinping is expected to meet Mr. Støre, and both leaders will hold in-depth discussions on bilateral ties and issues of common concern. China said it's ready to work with Norway to use the visit as an opportunity to further advance the sustained, healthy, and stable development of bilateral ties. Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu has ended his visit to China. The president is back in the country. He says his trip was successful. He rated himself when he spoke with Nigerians in diaspora. And this report sums up the visit and what Nigeria may or may not have achieved with the president's visit. A warm and colorful arrival to Beijing, China, and President Bola Tinubu kicked off his visit to the country with much expectation. Just like other presidential visits, he was expected to engage in a one-on-one discussion with Chinese President Xi Jinping, where both would table issues of mutual interests. He was also expected to sign new deals that will boost Nigeria's economic partnership with the country and leave Nigeria feeling richer as China's #1 partner in Africa. According to the presidency, all of that did take place. The president did hold a one-on-one meeting with the Chinese president, and both later announced the elevation of China-Nigeria relations to a comprehensive strategic partnership.
Mr. President.
Discussions filtered to economic cooperation, and both witnessed the signing of mutual cooperation documents related to China's Belt and Road Initiative and other economic development projects. And what's a presidential visit to another country without a chit-chat with the Nigerian community, where he charges Nigerians in China to be good ambassadors?
What is uppermost in my mind is for you to represent Nigeria. Nigeria for development. Nigeria for good citizenship. Here you are one of us, and we have to encourage you to be good ambassadors, all of you.
So did the president have a good outing in China? Career diplomat and former deputy head of mission of the Nigerian embassy in Beijing, Ambassador Chuka Udedibia, says Nigeria needs to be focused on something else: implementation of agreements and balancing of common interests.
We are sovereign countries and should relate to other sovereign countries on bilateral basis as sovereign nations. And each country established what we call joint commissions to handle their relations, their bilateral economic relations. There is also trade in services. There are so many aspects of bilateral relations. How have we fared in all these other areas?
He eventually answers the question about the president raising his visit a very successful one.
Nigerian presidents, not just Bola Tinubu, but other presidents in the past have been doing exactly the same thing. Because I was deputy head of mission in China. We saw China grow. When it started, we witnessed some of these things. And that's our job. We were writing reports, we were advising the government, this is the route to take. This is how Nigeria can benefit from till date. That has not been done.
As with all state visits, the achievements may only be noticed in the coming months. And with the president so confident already, we'll just have to wait and see. Imran. And in the program now to my producer's favorite story. Dogs were allowed to their cages and leashes on Sunday to attend the canine surf competition in Del Mar in San Diego, California. Dozens of dogs took part in the 19th annual edition of the Dog Surfathon hosted by the Helen Woodward Animal Center. Dogs wearing costumes, as you will soon see, and goggles as well, rode their surfboards as owners cheered them on. The Helen Woodward Animal Center, which is behind this really interesting competition, was established in 1972 as an organization where people help animals and animals help people.
It's all about just hanging out with your best friend out in the open water and just having a good time. You know, once you're out there on the board on the ocean, nothing matters. It's just about there having fun with your best friend. Plus, when you got a crowd like this, you just want to put on a good show for everybody and put smiles on everyone's faces. It's amazing, you know what? But, I don't look at it as for me. It's for this guy right here because he's the one that brings everybody here. If it was just me out there, no one would be here. Man, all I want to know is, I want people to know back home is that, hey, have fun with your best friend as long as you can. Things aren't going to last forever. We wish they could live forever, but have as much fun as you can doing adventures. Either go down the ocean, going to walk around the neighborhood, or just sitting on the couch watching a movie. But man, that's all I'm about is just having fun with your best friends.
Well, those dogs are really good sports and they're great surfers too. Thanks for watching The World Today. I'm Amarachi Ubama.